Hi, today we are going to be factoring trinomials into two binomials. So that means factor something with three terms, and then we're going to factor it into two sets of parentheses with just two terms each. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the first example here. So all these problems are going to be kind of the basic. There's nothing going to be super complicated or anything. It's just getting down how do you factor trinomials, and that's it. There's going to be no greatest common factor. We're not going to need any formulas, anything like that. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to list all the factors of this last term. So of the six. You kind of always want to start with one, right? I always like to start with the very beginning and go in order. So with one, the factor that goes with one will be six, right? Because one times six is six. And then after that, the next one is two. And the factor that goes with two is three, because two times three is six. And then from there, we're done. How it kind of works is once you almost loop over to the next one, right? The next factor of six would be three. You kind of finished, right? You kind of loop over to the other side, and then you got three and six as the other factors. So once they kind of meet in the middle, right? As long as you go in order, once you meet in the middle, you're kind of done. Um, and that's always super convenient to know because if you are missing a factor, sometimes that can be frustrating. Okay, so now we need two terms that are going to multiply to the last term of six. So they're going to multiply to six, or they're going to add to the middle term. And the middle term is going to be five. So we just look at our factors, right? It looks like 1 and 6 will multiply to 6, but 1 and 6 will not add to 5. What will add to 5 is the 2 and the 3. And if we put 2, 3, that multiplies to 6, and 2 plus 3 multiplies to 5. Very nice. All right, so now just the easy part. You just plug it into two sets of binomials. And since our leading coefficient is 1, all you need is 1 for the leading coefficient of your binomials as well. So that's just an x. Right? Because x times x is going to get x squared. And then you just plug in your two terms. You got x plus 2, and you got x plus 3. And that's it. That's your final answer. Awesome. All right. So now the next one. Same thing here. We're just doing the factors of the last term. Always start with 1. Right? You've got 1 and 15. 2 doesn't go into 15. 15 divided by 2 is 7.5, which won't. We're looking for integers. 3 is a factor because 3 times 5 is 15. So we could say 3 and 5. And then 4 doesn't work. 4 doesn't go into 15. The next one is 5, but that just loops over to this. Right? So now we're done. Now we're out of factors. Sweet. So now we're just going to go ahead and set up our little plus and minus thing. It's going to add to 8, negative 8, and it's going to multiply to 15. Now, one thing that I actually forgot to mention is that in order for it to add to a negative number, but multiply to a positive number, they would both have to be negative, right? Because a negative times a negative is a positive, but then a negative plus a negative is going to be negative. So all our factors, we want to go ahead and just make them negative. Cool. So now, -1, -15, that would multiply to 15, but it would not add to -8. So so that one's out. But -3 and -5, they do, right? They do add to -8. So that's our winner, right? It's got to be this one. So now we're just going to go ahead and plug -3, -5, -3, -5, and they both work. And now it's the easy part, right? We just do the same old, same old. We go x and x. And now, since we have a -3 and -5, we're just going to say x minus 3. And we're going to say x minus 5. And that's it. And that's the final answer. All right. Very nice. So now we've got this one. Same deal. So we've got a -28 now that we have to multiply to. And we've got a -3 that we have to add to. So let's go ahead and set this up. It's got to add to -3. And it's going to multiply to -28. So the first thing that I see is that it has to multiply to a negative number, which in order for it to multiply to a negative number, one of the factors is going to have to be negative, right? It's going to have to be a negative and a positive. In order for it to add to a negative number, the bigger one is going to have to be negative, right? Because when you add the numbers, after you cancel out the negatives and positives, you want left with -3. So you want your bigger number to be negative. So let's start doing the factors of 28. We're going to start with 1 and -28, right? So I'm making the bigger one negative just because we need it to be -3. Then we keep going in order, right? So now we do 2 and -14. 3 doesn't work. 4 does work, right? We're going to get 4 and -7. 5 doesn't go into 28. 6 doesn't go into 28. And then the next one would be 7, right? We loop around. We get that 7. So now we know we're done, right? Because once you loop around, you're out of factors. Cool. So now, as I can see here, it's got to be 4 -7 because those would add to -3. And then, of course, 4 -7 multiplied in -28. So now we're just going to plug it right into our two binomials where it has x as the front. And then you just say x plus 4 since the 4 is positive. And you say x minus 7. And that's it. And that's the final answer. All right, very nice. All right, and our final one here. So same deal. It needs to add to the middle term, which is 5, and it needs to multiply to the last term, which is -24. Well, again, in order to multiply to a negative number, one of them has to be negative, one of them has to be positive. But here, the bigger number must be positive, right? Because that's the only way that you're going to, when you add them together, you're going to end up with a positive number. So now, when we go and make our factors, we're going to make the smaller ones negative. So you've got -1 and 24. And then you've got -2 and 12. And then you've got -3 and 8, right? We're just going in order 1, 2, 3. And then you got -4 and 6. 5 doesn't work, right? But then you kind of loop around, you go back to 6, and we're good. We're done. Let's see. So now the question is, which one of these would add to 5? Well, when I'm kind of looking at it, it looks like negative 3 and 8, right? Because 3 of the negatives would cancel out with 3 of the positives, and you would get left with just 5. So, got negative 3 and 8. That seems to work. And now that we have our two factors, we just plug it in, right? We just plug in our two binomials. We've got x minus 3, and we've got x plus 8. And that is it. That is our final answer. All right. Very nice. So if you have any questions, let me know. Go ahead and put it down in the comments. And go ahead and subscribe. That's always helpful. And that's it. That's all I got for you guys. All right. Bye.